Now, it's no secret that I've been suffering from a touch of gonorrhea, superhero fatigue in recent months. The Marvel TV shows have produced varying degrees of mediocrity, wasted potential, and, well, shittiness.
You've got to do better, Senator.
Black Widow was a dumb, overblown disaster that was basically the cinematic equivalent of watching someone murder your best friend, string up their corpse like some hideous meat puppet, and use it to act out their favourite episode of Teletubbies. Shang-Chi, meanwhile, was a well-meaning but deeply flawed movie with a protagonist that felt like a supporting character in his own film, and a plot with more holes than a Ukrainian strip club that ultimately failed to persuade me why it was needed in the first place. So needless to say, my enthusiasm for the genre has been riding about as high as the chances of Rian Johnson's Star Wars trilogy actually happening. Never give up hope, Ryan. But hey, sometimes in your hour of need, life will throw you a bone. And in this case, the bone in question came in the form of Invincible, an 8-part animated TV show on Amazon about a teenager who inherits superpowers from his alien father and sets on a path to fight crime and protect the world, all while trying to maintain his secret identity and live something approaching a normal life. Unfortunately, the biggest threat of all may just turn out to be the person he trusts most. On the surface, it seems very much like your standard superhero story, but the thing that sets Invincible apart is the way it subtly plays with your expectations, pulling out sudden, unexpected swerves, violent and often shocking deaths, moments of genuine pathos and poignancy, and character development that turns out to be way more complex than you'd think. The writing of this show puts most live-action comic book movies to shame, and it's a genuine pleasure to watch characters you're actually invested in, risking their lives, and, well, not always coming out on top. The story centres around Mark Grayson, a 17-year-old high school student doing his best to live a normal life. Well, as normal as possible when your dad's a super powerful alien known as Omni-Man, who basically acts as protector of the planets. Yeah, clearly he's just Superman by another name, and at first glance, he seems like the perfect superhero. A loving father, a doting husband, and a brave guardian striving to protect the innocents. But as you find out over the course of the series, the two men couldn't be further apart in their moral outlook. Anyway, life changes dramatically for Mark when his superpowers finally start to manifest. Just like his father, he becomes super strong, super durable, and after a few fuck-ups, he even gains the ability to fly. Naturally, he wants to be just like his old man, and quickly develops the superhero persona of Invincible to begin his life of crime fighting, while also trying to romance Amber, his high school crush. Meanwhile, the Justice League, Guardians of the Globe, work to combat various threats from dangerous supervillains. The first episode kinda lulls you into a false sense of security. It's all very lightweight, good-natured, and more or less bloodless. There's some humour and fun character moments, a couple of low-level fights before the bad guys get subdued with minimal civilian casualties, and it all seems like the kind of safe, undemanding superhero show that kids would watch on Saturday mornings. Then, this happens.
Oh no.
In case you weren't too sure, Invincible is clearly not your standard animated superhero show. This is going to be something very different indeed. There's a lot going on in terms of storytelling in this show, and it would probably take me hours to fully cover all the different characters and subplots, but for the sake of brevity, the main storyline revolves around the fallout from the murder of the Guardians of the Globe. With the world's most powerful heroes now extremely dead, a new batch of young, untested recruits are promoted to replace them, overseen by Cecil Stedman, the head of a shadowy government organisation tasked with managing and containing the threat posed by superpowered creatures. Badly injured in the fight, Omni-Man's able to successfully hide his involvement in their deaths, but various characters around him start to go increasingly suspicious that he might be hiding something, including a fucking demon that somehow escaped from hell and now works as a private detective. Okay, sure, why not? Mark is mostly oblivious to it at first, blinded by his love and admiration for his father, and sees his new life as a chance to bond with him in a way he never could before. And it's only in the final, devastating episode that he comes face to face with the reality of who and what his father actually is. And just like every fictional teenage superhero ever, he also discovers that trying to balance two identities in one life is an impossible task, and that ultimately, something has to give. I said before that while Invincible uses a lot of the classic tropes of the superhero genre as its foundation, the thing that sets it apart is the complex, mature, multi-layered story that it builds on top of them. Nobody is quite what they seem at first, whether it's Omni-Man going from a righteous hero to a genocidal monster only to back away at the last moment as his love for his son gets the better of him, or Cecil, who acts like a sinister, uncaring government operative willing to do anything to complete his mission, only to gradually emerge as a decent, compassionate man, forced to do questionable things for the greater goods. Shit man, even Robot, who's presented as a bland, polite artificial intelligence, eventually gets unmasked as a pitiful, tragic creature, willing to give up everything for a chance to live a normal, complete life. Like I say, there's a lot going on here, and honestly, most of these supporting characters have more development, personality, and emotionally satisfying arcs than pretty much anything being put out by Marvel or DC these days. You genuinely feel for them as the series unfolds, and because this is the kind of show where death can come suddenly, violently, and permanently, even for important characters, there's real tension and stakes when they venture into harm's way. And nowhere is this better explored than the scenes between Mark and Omni-Man. The way their relationship develops from a grown man patiently dealing with the gripes and insecurities of his immature kid, to having to grapple with the reality that he's now a peer as his abilities and powers begin to develop, to finally realising that he can't be controlled and instructed like he once was, and that perhaps the only option left is physical force. It's played out in grandiose, over-the-top terms here, but really it's a mirror for the kind of conflict and tension between real parents and their kids as they make the difficult and often volatile journey from childhood into adulthood, and the relationship that once existed has to change with them. Their final battle is a particularly good piece of writing, because on one level it perfectly demonstrates the disastrous results of two superhumans battling it out in heavily populated areas. But there's more to the fight than two guys just throwing punches at each other. Omni-Man is trying to demonstrate, in brutal and gory terms, just how insignificant human lives are in the face of their own vast power and longevity. While Mark, on the other hand, is desperately trying to appeal to a sense of humanity and compassion that no longer exists. And damn, I think the scene which best demonstrates this comes after Mark expends great time and effort to rescue a downed fighter pilot from certain death, only for Omni-Man to show up and do this.
So much effort. For what?
All of this stuff is made possible by fantastic performances from an excellent group of voice actors, and damn, talk about an all-star cast. You've got J.K. Simmons, Stephen Yeun, Sandra Oh, Zachary Quinto, Mark Hamill, and Clancy Brown all in one fucking show. Everyone does a great job investing their characters with real personality and spark, helping to flesh them out as real, believable people with complex motivations. I mean, I'd be lying if I said that Amber was my favourite character. She's kinda preachy and moralistic at times, and at one point when she and Mark are considering what college to go to after high school, her deciding factor is what kind of social justice programme they have. But these gripes aside, I really can't fault the voice actress in her portrayal. What's interesting about Invincible is that the show also manages to balance out heavy, mature, dramatic storylines with moments of fun, humour and satire, and make it feel like it's part of a seamless, coherent narrative. And believe me, there's not many shows or movies that can do that these days. There's been kind of a push in recent years to subvert the tropes of classic storytelling in a never-ending quest to make the latest assembly line entertainment product feel fresh, unique and creative. And while most of them come across as clumsy, disrespectful and mean-spirited attempts to undermine the very things that made them possible in the first place, Invincible knows just when to step back from the satire and subversion and refocus on the core storyline. There's some genuinely funny moments and characters. Machine Head's a real standout for me.
I also knew exactly when you and this giant pile of shit would walk in here and ruin my doors. Also, Italian maple, by the way.
But the writers are smart enough to never indulge in that stuff too much and have the show drift off into the realms of parody. The overall tone remains a serious one, and the stakes, as far as the characters are concerned, are very real. Honestly, I feel like Invincible came along at just the right time for me, helping to remind me that the whole superhero genre can still be thrilling, visceral and creative, and that in the right hands, it's still possible for modern Hollywood to tell great stories with classic tropes and archetypes. The show's already been renewed for 2 more seasons, and honestly, I hope Disney takes a long hard look at what they managed to do with this simple cartoon. I don't know what they'll do with it or where they'll take it, but for now, it gets a well-deserved drinker recommends from me. Anyway, that's all I've got for today. Go away now.